Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, VISTA Project Sustainability Approaches and Strategies. Thank you very much for joining us today as we talk about ways that you can help sustain the work and achievements of your VISTA members and supervisors. We at the VISTA program know that sustainability can sometimes be a scary topic, but we really hope that you will find it fun and enriching as you think about how to continue forward progress and maintain essential programs and functions developed as part of your VISTA project. My name is Eric Powell, and I'm very happy to be an AmeriCorps VISTA training specialist here at the Corporation for National and Community Service located in Washington, D.C. I'm a very proud VISTA and VISTA Leader alum, and I'm very excited to be with all of you and many sponsors around the country helping to train and support our AmeriCorps VISTA supervisors on a variety of topics and information that they need to successfully sustain and succeed in their VISTA projects. Also joining us today are Jeff Banis and Kim Adams from our partners at LSI, who will be managing the Adobe Connect technology. You may also see them at times in the chat panel. We always like to begin with session goals. What do we hope to accomplish in today's webinar? We'd really like you to identify 4 things today. 1 is to understand the overall project sustainability within the VISTA context, as sustainability will probably look somewhat different for each project based on its goals and objectives. 2, define member and supervisor roles and recognize how members and supervisors can both support each other to achieve sustainability. 3, identify specific practices that can lead to VISTA project sustainability, since we know a lot of people who attend webinars want practical knowledge. 4, plan for program sustainability. And 5, identify existing resources to support sustainability efforts. Continuing into the agenda, today we'll focus on what is sustainability, how does it work, who owns it. This will help understand the concept and how to apply it. We'll look at how to create a sustainability plan. Some of you may have one, some of you may not know what this is, but this includes typical elements of what you should put into the sustainability plan. When we get to the section on transferring knowledge, products, and relationships, we'll talk about how to put sustainability into practice and really think about the how of sustainability. We'll then transition to keys to success and resources that will provide you tips, training, tools, and resources available to you at all times, continuing into next steps, how you can start on your progress, and then finally we'll end with questions and answers. Whether you have a sustainability plan in place or not, there are fundamental elements to include in a plan and questions for you to answer as you create or update a plan. To start, we'll go with more general questions of what is sustainability and what is a sustainability plan? How does sustainability work in terms of planning and implementation? Who is responsible for maintaining and actualizing the sustainability plan? Well, let's start with some of the key questions to ask in addition to the ones that we just asked about sustainability specifically in the VISTA context. You'll want to start by asking yourself, do you know what specifically will be sustained after the VISTA member leaves? And this could be what will be sustained or perhaps what you want to be sustained. Keeping in mind that sustainability deals with knowledge, systems, products, and relationships, and it might be another VISTA member, someone in your organization, volunteers, or other community stakeholders who are involved in this process. How will you and your VISTA members ensure that these people understand and are capable of using or working with the knowledge, systems, products, or relationships they are building? And finally, how will you work with the leaders in your organization and community to help them understand the real intrinsic value of what your VISTA members are building and are committed to carrying it forward? These are just a couple of the very important questions to think about when considering VISTA project sustainability. And remember that planning for sustainability really starts at the very beginning when you develop your VISTA project, and it's an ongoing process. We'll be looking at a couple of ways that you might answer the how questions during the rest of our time together. And keep in mind, if for some reason you cannot answer any of these questions yet, it's probably a good time to start a conversation with your VISTA members about planning for sustainability, given that many VISTA members are already thinking about sustainability even before they accept their position, and how their specific one-year VISTA assignment description activities actually make a difference towards eliminating poverty and keeping necessary programs going. Based on our experience with VISTA members, we've heard that many of them are eager to talk about sustainability in its various contexts. As a supervisor, you are key to their understanding of how they work and how their work fits into the big picture of sustainability for your program or organization. VISTA members have often told us that they want to better understand how their activities fit into and support your overall program or agency goals and sustainability. They're extremely interested in tips on how to specifically transfer community relationships to a new VISTA member or a staff member, and they want to hear about examples of how to increase sustainability in the VISTA project. We of course know that supervisors find sustainability important as well, and over the years, supervisors have told us that it's important to learn more about helping VISTA members understand the broader impact of the project activities on the overall agency goals and the fact that the two do not live in isolation. Discussing sustainability with sub-site supervisors and helping them understand what that may mean for their specific sub-site. Supervisors also wanted to learn, how do you focus more on sustainability from the start? And I saw a couple of responses earlier in the chat panel that some of you are new supervisors, so that's something that you're looking at right now. Supervisors also want to know about helping VISTAs understand how to prepare for the next VISTA member and specific pinpointed ways to work with community partners to promote sustainability in their area. Throughout today's presentation, we'll touch on tips, tools, and examples related to these topics as much as we can. Since sustainable solutions is one of VISTA's 4 core principles, it's obviously important, so let's talk about it. These 3 questions on the screen about sustainability help us go into more specific detail in the VISTA context. What do we mean by sustainability? How does it work? And as we asked earlier, who owns it and who is responsible? So let's go ahead and dive right in. We'll take a look first at understanding sustainability from the VISTA program's perspective. Again, as we know, sustainability may look different depending on the actual VISTA assignment and the needs of each specific project. For example, in some projects, sustainability will be continuing every single element of the VISTA member service. At other projects, there may only be a few elements that continue on. Understanding what sustainability means for your specific project is the first step to achieving it. In the VISTA context, sustainability is the ability of a program or organization to continue engaging community stakeholders to meet the needs of the community efficiently and effectively through potentially changing circumstances and sources of support after the departure of the last VISTA member. And of course, by design, VISTA projects are developed with a goal to phase out the need for VISTA members after a short period of time. It's kind of a weird concept to think you're trying to phase someone out of a position, but it all works towards sustainability because the work of the VISTA members should be focused on strengthening the capacity of the sponsoring site while engaging community members to ensure the program or organization they are supporting can run by itself after they are gone. Let's take this one step further and get personal. And I don't mean personal with you specifically, personal with your VISTA project. In the VISTA project application submitted by your sponsoring organization, they will have outlined how the project will be designed to build long-term sustainability in an organization or program to ensure that it continues after VISTA resources end. This section also includes a discussion of how this approach will change over time as the VISTAs implement the project and build capacity. If you're not already familiar with it, I do recommend taking a look at your project application, particularly the section called Strengthening Communities. That way you can see what it has to say about sustainability. Then, you can take those sustainability elements and dig a little bit deeper. Take the time to really break out specific action steps, timelines, and people involved, kind of similar to a checklist, to help you more easily prepare for sustainability. You'll want to be detailed and not vague. While VISTA members themselves do have an important role to play in supporting and strengthening sustainability, the overall responsibility for program sustainability ultimately lies with the staff of your organization. you and your colleagues have a longer-term, bigger picture view of the program and should be thinking about sustainability throughout the design and implementation of your VISTA project. As you think about your own VISTA project and its efforts towards sustainability, consider for a few minutes what overall program sustainability looks like and how you can apply this to your VISTA project. In general, nonprofit and community-based programs need 4 kinds of organizational capacity to support sustainability. The image on the screen may be familiar to some of you, and it might be new to some of you, but in terms of this image, we just launched a poll on the screen, and you can see it occupies the bottom half of the chat panel on the left side of the screen. And we'd like you to take just a minute to quickly answer the question, which one of these types of organizational capacity do you feel is strongest in your VISTA project? Keep in mind that these all may not apply to every single project, but the 4 types are program capacity, which means effective programs, making a demonstrable difference, and addressing real community needs. Communication capacity, which is the ability to really tell your story effectively in order to engage and maintain support. Human capacity, which means effective and empowered staff and volunteers. And financial capacity, referring to sufficient financial resources from a diversity of sources. Go ahead and make your selection in the poll, and we'll give you another few seconds to submit your response before we look at the results. As you probably know, this poll is anonymous. We just want a general overview of what people think about is their strongest element of organizational capacity in their organization. And this activity is simply to give us an idea what it looks like out in the field. Knowing that will help you and your VISTA project think about which other legs of the stool may be a little loose or weak, and which ones could use some adjustment and strengthening. So we'll go ahead and close the poll now. If you didn't complete it, don't worry about it. We just want a pretty good overview of what people responded. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the results. So it looks like just over half, 51% of people said program capacity seems to be the strongest in their organization, followed next by communication capacity, human capacity, and then a slim number of you said financial capacity seems to be the strongest. So as you probably know, these results are great, and there's no right or wrong answer, again, as it looks different in every program. But just like with a real 4-legged stool, all 4 legs of the sustainability stool have to be strong enough to support the program's sustainability. If any one leg is too weak, the whole stool will fall down. And as you can see in this image, connecting and strengthening these 4 legs of the sustainability stool are engaged and empowered community members and organizational stakeholders. Those are absolutely essential. Their support is crucial to sustainability because they are the ones who hold it all together. I hope by now that it's clear to you at least how the capacity building work of the VISTA members supports program sustainability in different ways sustainability may be achieved. During their year of service, VISTA members work to create, expand, or strengthen an organization's systems or processes, and they also engage and empower community members and organizational partners. That capacity building work expands the scale, reach, efficiency, or effectiveness of programs and organizations, and it enables your organization and community partners to sustain program activities once the VISTA project ends. So all that sounds great, but what does this really look like concretely, and how does the specific work of a VISTA member in context with the VISTA program connect to the overall big picture? Oftentimes, the best way to illustrate this is using an example. So let's use one. Both members and supervisors have said that they want to learn more about how a VISTA member's activities relate to the larger goals of their organizations and even to the national movement of VISTA. As part of the application we referred to earlier, every project must submit a project plan that outlines how their work will fit in with national goals and agency goals. So here's an example of how this might look for a mentoring program that has a VISTA member. In this specific example, the overarching national goal is to provide support and/or facilitate access to services and resources that contribute to improved educational outcomes. The agency goal, supporting the national goal, is to improve educational and behavioral outcomes. The VISTA project goals are to ensure that children of incarcerated parents receive the educational, social, and emotional support they need through engagement with a mentor. The goal in the VISTA assignment description, or VAD, for this particular VISTA is to develop a sustainable volunteer recruitment and management systems for the agency's mentoring program. And then the VISTA activities to reach this goal are specifically to create outreach systems, develop targeted marketing materials, and enhance the current mentor training. So as you can see in this example, it starts with an overarching goal and narrows down to the very specific VISTA activities, which not only helps you write the VISTA assignment description, but also look at how to sustain the project. If you have not seen your project application or inherited this work, a great place to start thinking about sustainability is with the member VISTA assignment descriptions. As we said earlier, each VAD should outline activities that build capacity for your organization and your community. So now that we've looked at the overall picture of sustainability and how VISTA activities relate to larger goals, I'll pause for a moment and ask you to comment in the chat panel. The question is, what factors do you think lead to sustainable VISTA projects? Please be very specific and practical, as this activity should not only help you think about action steps that you can take to further and sustain your VISTA project, but others will see your responses and be able to identify ways that they can sustain their VISTA projects, especially for those VISTA sponsors who mentioned that they're new and trying to get their feet wet and figure out what's going on. So I see Krista mentions good documentation. Absolutely. Not just for reporting, but if you want to be sustainable, you have to know what's going on. Christy mentions well-documented notes and information so other people can continue with their projects. Mary mentions not scaling a program too quickly. We oftentimes get really excited that things are going well, we want to grow, we want to succeed, but if you grow too quickly, you don't have enough time to pause and think about how to actually sustain the momentum and sustain the growth in positive and effective ways. And a couple of quick other ones. Samantha says attractive economic environment. That makes sense to me, very self-explanatory. And Sherry says organizational involvement and community stakeholder support. Absolutely critical. Without that, it's not really going to work because, as you know, the VISTA program is a temporary time frame to have in your project, and your organization and community will need to continually support the work that you're doing. So keep these comments coming. I know there's a lot coming in. These are fabulous responses. We have lots to cover. So we're now going to transition to look at what a large-scale study of past VISTA projects conducted back in 2010 found about what contributed to sustainable VISTA projects. So the study that we're looking at found that 84% of VISTA projects were still operating 3 years after the departure of the last VISTA member. The most important factors cited were a lot of things that you all mentioned: the capacities, training, and dedication of VISTA members, the support for the project from the community at large, the age of the organization and the organization's experience with project activities, and the centrality of a project's goal to the mission of the organization. This report and more can be found on the VISTA Campus website, and in the search field you can just type Sustainability Report. There's also a link to it in the Helpful Links document that's in the Handouts and Downloads panel. So of course we know that there are some projects that are not sustained. Some of them are not sustained because perhaps they already met their goals and objectives, which is a fabulous thing. Others may not have been sustained because perhaps their sustainability plan fell through, or they lacked sufficient resources and support to keep things going. Remember that to be sustained, here's just a couple of quick things that can really make a positive difference. Really good organization or project management, which includes someone keeping an eye on sustainability from a high level and a specific level, and always making sure that information is captured and documented, as many of you mentioned, in ways that elements can be sustained and needed as desired. Sufficient resources. Resources are not just monetary, they can also be in-kind donations, volunteers and community members, etc. These are essential to sustainability, as well as consistently strong community support. We can't stress it enough. Without the support of the community, you're in need. with the community, you have a group of people and sometimes organizations that really value your mission and purpose, and everyone can work together. And then continual organizational support. Since you probably don't want to work in a vacuum, you can obtain organization support by periodically updating staff and board members about progress and letting them also know your achievements as well as your project needs. Organization support may look different from organization to organization. Your work as supervisors, supporting and coaching your VISTA members in building capacity can have a profound effect not just on your program sustainability, but also actually on the retention of your VISTA members, so keep that in mind. The sustainability plan, important, details, practical. This section will help you create a sustainability plan if you do not yet have one, or if you already have one, it can guide you in updating it and enhancing it so that it'll be effective and useful for you. Sustainability plans are not perfect, and of course, they need some room for flexibility, but plans are a great way to get you started and focused. Looking back at our sustainability stool, we want to know, are you prepared for sustainability? Do you have steps and procedures in place to capture processes, achievements, places you can grow, etc.? And are you and your VISTA members actively talking about and focusing on sustainable activities? It's not enough just to mention it once, as reinforcing the importance of this is critical. And just to be clear, an overall sustainability plan would address all 4 legs of the program's sustainability stool. As a VISTA supervisor, you will want to have this big picture in mind. You may not have all the answers, but you'll want to work with your VISTA to support and ensure the sustainability of their capacity building work. And for your work, you will want to also have the specific details and elements in mind that lead up to the big picture so that you know where to start and how to measure incremental progress. If you do not already have an overall plan for sustainability, it's time for you and your organization to develop one or start thinking about one. A little bit later, we'll share some resources in this webinar that can help specifically with that. And whether or not that overall plan is in place, you and your VISTA member will need your own plan for transferring and sustaining the capacity they are building during their year of service. Again, because sustainability in your program might look a little bit different from someone else's program. In either case, you should really be a guide, a planning partner, and a resource as you work with your VISTA member to develop a sustainability plan. We really want supervisors to work together with VISTA members to identify sustainability objectives, identify milestones marking progress on the path to those objectives, identify a timeline for reaching those objectives, and in the terms of the timeline, try to be as realistic as possible, allowing for some flexibility, but also being rigid around starting sooner than later so that you can squeeze in everything you need to. Identify activities and practices to get to your sustainability objectives, which really are already outlined in the VAD. And then decide who is responsible for the activities you identified. This is important because some of the activities that you identify could perhaps be appropriate for a VISTA member to carry out, while others may be more appropriate for you or another staff member to implement. So here's an example. It might be more appropriate for you or a staff member to take the lead on activities such as advocating for a program with organization leadership, board presentations, or strategic planning, or for working with human resources or the information technology department. We'll give some concrete examples shortly of other types of activities that may be more appropriate for your VISTA members to take the lead on. While VISTAs are assigned to build capacity to support program sustainability, the overall responsibility for sustainability lies with your organization because they're the ones who have to own the project and lead the process. And remember, this should not be a sad or depressing activity. This should be fun as you're looking toward what does success look like and how can we keep the really important elements going. Someone at your organization should really keep their eye on the big picture of sustainability of your program. Sustainability does involve everyone, you, your VISTA members, other staff, and the community, so make it a team effort. Finally, make a plan with your VISTA member to assess progress toward your sustainability objectives and to check in regularly on activities and milestones, which could be during your regular check-ins with your VISTAs that you have, and of course, adjusting the sustainability plan as needed. The year of a VISTA member goes by very quickly, as I'm sure many of you experienced sponsors already know, so the earlier you can check in with them about sustainability, the better. Since everyone has a role to play in the big picture of sustainability, let's talk about the differences. You or your organization and community partners are responsible for envisioning the future of the project. This probably was articulated in the project application and the concept paper, and hopefully you at least gave that vision to your VISTA members when they applied and once they started serving, so they had a clue, basically, of what you were looking to do. You're also responsible for creating and engaging a community advisory board, or it could be something similar, just different ways to engage the community and get them involved. Creating and implementing a sustainability plan, as we've mentioned, and if you're an intermediary and you have sub-site supervisors, you're responsible for orienting them and the VISTA members to the sustainability plan. VISTA members specifically are responsible for building the capacity of your organization and community through supporting sustainability in their VAD activities. They should be engaging staff, community partners, and volunteers in or through their VAD activities, and they should specifically be working on transferring the knowledge, products, and relationships that they develop. This chart might be a little bit hard to read, but it does illustrate how sustainability roles and tasks may flow over the course of a 3-year project. Some of the key points that I will highlight include the host organization or VISTA sponsor is continually planning forward and growing in its ability to meet its goals by utilizing the capacity that the VISTA members build. Community members and partners are involved from the start in the planning phase. Their role evolves over time from consultation to increasing involvement and ultimately taking on and continuing project tasks and roles. And the VISTA members build on one another's work to ensure that the capacity that they built is transferred to others. We partnered with an organization a couple of years ago called Emmaus Incorporated, and they provided us 10 really good tips for creating a sustainable VISTA project. The tips really do have a connection to your role as supervisors and sponsors and can easily be utilized for that purpose. So we'll quickly go through them now. One is creating replicable projects, which includes projects that have instructions and process documents for others to be able to take over. 2, cohesion with the organization's mission and strategic goals is essential because they should have similarities. 3, intentional focus on sustainability throughout the design and implementation phases is critical. 4, the likelihood of achieving your desired outcomes is important because it really does you no good if you have unrealistic outcomes or if you do not adequately prepare for your VISTA members to achieve their outcomes. 5, getting and soliciting buy-in from the executive leadership and board of directors by thoroughly explaining the VISTA project, its purpose, and how you'd like to sustain its activities. 6, understanding the project's funding needs and determining likely funding opportunities to help you sustain the financial aspect of it. 7, effective staff and volunteers who do not only get the job done, but are truly passionate and want to see the work continue. Number 8, adequate non-staff resources that may be achieved through volunteers or partnerships separate from actual staff you have. Number 9, involvement of community partners in the work so that they have an understanding of the entire concept, which will help them when it comes time to taking on some of the work. And number 10, continually measuring success and also documenting areas that you struggle so that you can make ongoing adjustments to your project. So with that, we're going to stop for another quick chat question. What are you doing with your VISTA members to plan for sustainability? And as you can see on the screen, the specific question is, how are you working with your VISTA members to plan for the sustainability of your program? If you haven't yet started working with your members towards this, you can answer the question, how do you plan to work with your VISTA members to plan for the sustainability of your program? Again, you can use the chat pod to name a few examples of specifically what you're doing with in terms of coaching or supporting your VISTA members for sustainability. Maybe there's something specific that you've done to help them think about and not just work on their one-year assignment or VAD, but seeing how their service term fits into the larger sustainable goals of the VISTA project. So I see a lot of responses coming in, and let me see. Mary mentions emphasizing the role of volunteer recruitment in order to support the growth of the program. That's absolutely essential. Again, volunteers are a non-staff resource, but hopefully your organization has passionate volunteers who are connected to the VISTA project and can work with the VISTA members to work towards sustainability. Susie says, plans to coach the VISTAs into a longer-term project and work with them so that it's not just a one-year position, but it's sustainable in the future. That's fabulous. And another one, Sabrina mentions planning and to check in with their VISTAs on a regular basis to make sure that the research that they're working on is fully understood by the organization and can easily be taken on by the next VISTA member or the project once the VISTA program continues. So these are great that are looking at practicality of ways for VISTA members to sustain their VISTA project. And again, for those of you who do not yet have an answer to this question, or you might be in the progress and struggling with sustainability, consider thinking about all these ideas that are coming in the chat. Some of these you might be able to use for your project, so you might even want to copy and paste some of these ideas into a Word document and save it for your own purposes so that you're not just reinventing the wheel. And we want you to share resources with each other like you're doing in the chat. So thank you for that activity. Before we continue, we're going to pause just for a minute to see if there's any quick questions that are coming in via the chat panel. We will have a little bit more time at the end of the presentation for additional questions, but I'm going to pause now to see if I see any questions coming in the chat panel based on what we've just covered in terms of the sustainability stool, what is sustainability, the how of the sustainability plan. Again, in a few minutes, we'll get into more specifics about how to make sustainability work. But pausing now to see, I do see one question that comes in from Alexis. Can the table that was shown earlier as a template for, can the table shown earlier work as a template for developing a plan? Yes, it can. So the table that we showed a couple slides earlier, and a lot of the resources that are in this webinar can definitely be used as a template to develop a plan. I would certainly use that as a starting off point and realize, again, everything in that table may not apply specifically to your VISTA project, but extrapolating from your perspective as a supervisor or sponsor, coming up with your ideas, and then once you have a draft sustainability plan, I would share it once it's close to being finalized with your VISTA members as well as your stakeholders to get their feedback and input as to how to expand the plan and work more towards it. Another question from Krista is our sustainability plan actually written and turned in? That is a great question, Krista. So from the AmeriCorps VISTA program's perspective, we, especially your CNCF State Program Officer, we would love to see your sustainability plan in writing. There's not, I don't believe there's a specific requirement that you have to turn that in. Obviously, there are things you have to turn in like your concept paper, your application. You do have to turn in a copy of your planned on-site orientation and training, or OSAT, and that's something that could contribute towards your sustainability plan as you think about training your VISTA member and continuing that training into how you use that training for staff after the VISTA project leaves. So a best practice is, once you do have a sustainability plan in place, you may want to share it with your CNCF State Program Officer to get their feedback, because they also may have some ideas that can contribute to helping your plan succeed and expanding it in the future. So these questions are great. Thank you for those. Again, we will have more time at the end of the presentation for a few more questions, but we're going to go ahead and continue to the next slide and talk about what we've covered so far. So far we've started today's conversation with sustainability, what it is, how it works, and who ultimately owns it and is responsible for it. From there, we talked about ways that you can create a sustainability plan using essential elements necessary to craft your ideas around what really needs to be continued after the last VISTA member leaves. Next, we're going to go one step further into looking at how a detailed sustainability plan and the implementation of that plan should include steps for the VISTA member to transfer their knowledge, products, and relationships. To give you a solid foundation from which you can build, let's talk about the details. Since the VISTA project is a temporary asset, but you will likely want much of the work to continue, you will need practical ways to transfer what the VISTA member has created, learned, and built to other individuals. One essential role that you can play for sustainability as a VISTA supervisor, and this also relates to using this as a template to create a sustainability plan, is working with your VISTA members to plan for how do you pass on the capacity that they are building. And it sounds like a lot of you have already started thinking about this. We in the VISTA program define capacity building using words such as transferring knowledge, products, and relationships. No matter how much information a VISTA member gains, how many deliverables they create, or how many professional contacts they develop, if they are not intentionally passed on to others in your organization or community, their work as a VISTA member will not contribute to the sustainability of your program or organization. So let's start with transferring knowledge. Knowledge is not always something easily reflected or documented as it manifests itself in our brains. However, there are ways to help with passing on the knowledge and the work of your VISTA members. Your VISTA members might create asset maps or other ways of representing and sharing the assets, capacities, and potential partners they have identified in your community so that those assets can be connected and built upon by others. They may choose to work with others to do a stakeholder analysis using the knowledge they have gained and pass on the results for others to build upon. If you have VISTA members that are doing research or identifying resources in a variety of areas, the results should be documented and passed on through a written report, spreadsheet, electronic directory, slideshow, or other means that's easily understandable by your VISTA project staff. They may collect written or recorded stories of people who are positively impacted by your program, or of volunteers and others who may have invested in your program. These stories are critical and can be used by others in communication and outreach, especially when it comes to recruitment. Again, why sustainability touches on every single aspect of your VISTA project, or it can be used in helping to solicit funds and in reporting back to stakeholders. You or your VISTA member could make presentations to organizational leaders and staff that share the results of the VISTA member's work and connect it to your organization's goals, effectiveness, and sustainability. And presentations are a great way to also not just contribute the information to the VISTA project, but it's also a way to keep things sustainable because a presentation is a documented source of information that you can build upon later. And finally, VISTA members should also identify or create opportunities to share the results of their research or the story of your program with partners, potential supporters, or the community. You probably have VISTA members that are creating products, systems, or processes. So what does it look like in terms of sustainability for VISTA to transfer products? Once you've identified who will be using the products, VISTA members can design and carry out training for those users and work with them one-on-one to ensure that they understand and are comfortable using them. They can also create step-by-step guides to help others carry their work forward and build on it, such as event planning guides, user guides, or process guides, as well as templates that can easily make tasks easier for others in the future. One of the most important things VISTA members can do to pass on their work is to assemble their products and store them in a way that will make them accessible and understandable after they're gone. And we emphasize accessible and understandable because shared electronic resources can be extremely useful. You may already have a shared drive in use at your organization, or you may want to share with folks outside your organization. Some VISTA members sometimes use free resources like Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, etc. But just make sure that if there's any information regarding personally identifiable information, or PII, that your VISTA member works with, such as names and addresses and social security numbers, any of that information, you probably don't want to share that on a generically free source. So you'd want to check with your information technology office or your organization's privacy office as to how to securely store that information. But one of the key things to keep in mind, if the people involved in this transferring of products are not already familiar with whatever sharing platform that you use, make sure that your VISTA members help people get comfortable with using it before they leave. It might be in the form of an instructional document or a step-by-step guide as to how to use this product. And of course, you'll want to make sure that resources are not linked solely to an account that will disappear after VISTA members are gone. For example, if you have an account that was only linked to that VISTA member's email address, or if no one else had the username and password for a shared website, you'll want to make sure that the VISTA member leaves behind any usernames or passwords that you will need for shared websites and information that should stay with the organization and the VISTA project. So let's talk about transferring relationships. We know that relationships can be among the most difficult to transfer successfully because, let's put it in reality, sometimes it's just a personal bond that is formed and people connect with other people's personalities. Your VISTA may make a fabulous connection and that person really feels a connection with that VISTA member, which is great. However, you'll want to make sure that your VISTAs don't wait until the last minute to begin transferring that relationship to someone else at the organization. VISTA members should be intentional from the start about building relationships that are identified with the organization or program, not just an individual VISTA member. VISTA members need to make it clear that although they are themselves and they are a VISTA member, they are representing an organization in the relationship, so stakeholders make a clear connection and know that they will work with others in the future. These connections can be made through recognition and celebration events, involving staff and organizational leaders in training sessions or meetings, and by making personal introductions. Even if another VISTA member will be coming on board, a staff member might need to bridge the temporary gap between when a VISTA member leaves and when the next one comes on, and they may want to accompany them to meetings and make introductions in anticipation of their VISTA member's departure. Also keep in mind, when the time comes, VISTA members really should focus on preparing key individuals for their departure and making sure that they know, feel comfortable with, and have contact information for a staff person or another VISTA member. VISTA members also may create or formalize a community advisory board or a similar group. The VISTA member definitely wants to document things like the group's scope of responsibility, who the members are, contact information, and any working agreements or decision-making processes that they've landed on, so that that information is sustainable in the future. And if your VISTA members work with organizational partners, they can work with those partners and staff of the organization to create written memoranda of understanding or memoranda of agreement that articulate the partners' roles and responsibilities in as much detail as possible. Okay, everyone. So now that you've heard all of these examples, it's your turn to share again. Whether or not it's true, imagine that your current VISTA member will be the last one at your organization. I know, you probably have some tears in your eyes. I certainly understand that. No one wants the VISTA members to leave, but as the VISTA position is only there for 1 year. You might be frantically trying to multitask while also trying to figure out what you need to sustain some of the work. So the question is, very specifically, what one action can you take to help your VISTA members understand and work towards sustainability? Some of you touched on that a little bit earlier, but just very specific, going from the more general earlier to the very specific now. Go ahead and type some action statements that you can do to work towards sustainability. And as you do that, we're going to go ahead and continue to the next slide, and we can come back to these a little bit later so that we have enough time to get to the presentation. So as you go ahead and type your responses, we're going to look at what does sustainability look like in terms of member management. When recruiting for VISTA members, you want to have sustainability in mind, because much of this lies in the VISTA assignment description that is not just for the VISTA member to follow for the year, but it's also a guide for you. You want to create the VAD in such a way that anyone who reads it will be able to see the connection between the specific VAD activities and the sustainability of the project. With your opportunity listing, it is not just about writing catchy and honest language to attract individuals. You also want to briefly showcase the overall goal of your project and help people to think about how that position will contribute to something greater and long-lasting. The same is true during the interview phase in communicating to candidates what they will be doing and how they will be helping to create and keep a project going. Once your VISTA member arrives on site and participates in the VISTA member orientation, or VMO, Your project at your VISTA site and their supervisor will provide them an in-depth on-site orientation and training. This OSOT is a great opportunity to dedicate a little bit of time and effort in explaining what sustainability in your project will look like and how the VISTA member plays a key role in helping achieve it. VISTA members want to know that they are working towards something meaningful, something greater, and something more important, so take the time to help them do that. If you have a VISTA project that operates at more than one location or service site, you will want to consider elements of project sustainability in your required Memorandum of Understanding with each of your sub-sites. If it is not in there, you should separately communicate to your sub-sites the critical need to have a sustainability plan. And if your project is already underway, you might be responsible for the project continuation, which is also an extremely important time to not just think about continuing the VISTA project, but how do you continue the work the VISTA member created and enhanced after the last VISTA member leaves. We know that part of the sustainability plan likely includes developing partnerships of all types, as VISTA projects have succeeded and thrived over the years with connections and supporters helping them achieve their mission. Since we know everyone is responsible for reporting in some way, we're going to take just a few final minutes to think about sustainability and its connection to reporting. You probably already know there's quite a few reports that you fill out as a VISTA project. So how do reports relate to sustainability? That's simple. Data, facts, stories, all the information that you compile for the VISTA program really relates to sustainability and can be used when thinking about a plan for future growth and progress. So your first question is probably, how on earth is a future plans form listed as a report that relates towards sustainability? Well, time to be creative. Remember that the future plans form is unlocked for the VISTA member 90 days prior to them finishing service. The member completes Part A, then the supervisor completes Part B. Here's where the fun part comes in. The member can see the comments that you enter in Part B, which is why we recommend you conduct an exit interview with the member, and the exit interview is something that's strongly suggested to help you towards sustainability. Just like you had an interview question at the beginning selecting your VISTA candidates, it might really help you succeed if you develop exit interview questions. And the questions might be such simple questions as, if you have any suggested changes or improvements for our VISTA program, what would they be? You also might want to ask the VISTA member, since the VISTA program is only for a certain period of time, what recommendations do you have for us to sustain elements of the work that you've been doing and keep it going? Another question could be, what resources and information have you already put together as a VISTA member so that our organization and the community can continue essential work? This is a prime opportunity to talk with the member about their progress, help prepare the member for the end of their VISTA service and life afterwards, and capture important information about their feelings of the project and how it can be sustained. So take advantage of these moments. You'll also want to share information about your VISTA project sustainability plan with many people, including your CNCF state office, your geographical and professional communities, the networks you formed, any stakeholders to your organization, the board of directors, and to your VISTA members and leaders, especially if they have a vested interest in the VISTA project or even are simply curious about what's next. They will likely need to be involved and may have additional insight as to how to keep various aspects of the project going. This may also greatly prevent you from having to develop or create a sustainability plan from scratch if many of your networks already have thoughts and suggestions. After all, who does not want to be successful? We all want ourselves and our VISTA projects to strive to make positive change and succeed. You probably have ideas on your own as to how you can further improve, so now we're going to provide you a few tools and resources that you can use. There are quite a few resources on the VISTA campus to help you, your VISTAs, and your organization plan for and assess progress towards sustainability. Many of these links are included in the Helpful Links handout that you can access in the Handouts and Downloads panel at the bottom of your presentation. But this slide does show a few that you might find useful, from everything to assessing your project's progress towards sustainability, all the way up to learning how do you gain community buy-in. In addition to those are great resources developed by our fabulous VISTA leaders that are talking about how you and your VISTA members can create a sustainability binder, whether it's hard copy or electronic, and specific action steps to take to keep various aspects of the project going. Again, remember that sustainability looks somewhat different in each program, and there's additional resources. There's one called the Program Sustainability Assessment Tool that may be helpful for you providing planning templates and resources. You may also on your own find additional external resources that are not officially endorsed by the Corporation for National and Community Service, but they still may assist you in thinking about and working towards program sustainability. We know we've covered a lot of information today, and we hope that today's presentation has given you a good sense of how you can apply sustainability principles to your VISTA project and determine what sustainability looks like. Of course, the most important part of this webinar, like any good learning experience in terms of next steps, is what you're going to do with it in your real life. So here are some next steps that we recommend. Take another look in your VISTA project application at the Strengthening Communities section to remind yourself of the overall plan and what you can do to it. In your regular meetings with your VISTA members, intentionally add a component of sustainability, what it is, why it is important, how the VISTA member can work with the supervisor to achieve it, especially through the VISTA member's VAD and thinking about the knowledge, products, and relationships to be transferred. Utilize many resources available to you to create a sustainability plan or enhance the one that already exists. Sometimes these plans need continual maintenance and updating. And be sure to share your ideas. We love your ideas. Share them with other supervisors on the Supervisor Cafe discussion forums. It's a great resource for you to access on the VISTA campus. You can start a new discussion thread and share resources with other people. In looking at today's agenda, we've covered just about everything except for the question and answers. So we're going to move now to the final 2 or 3 slides. The next one talks about evaluation and recording. So we want to first hear your feedback because we value your input and suggestions, and we really do, and I should say I specifically do really look at your feedback so we can plan future webinars. You can see the webinar survey link pod in the bottom right corner of your slide, just to the right of the handouts and downloads panel. Please take a moment to share your feedback. If you do not see the survey, again, it's in the webinar survey link pod on your screen. And again, as a reminder, the recording of today's presentation will be posted on the VISTA campus on the supervisor's webinar page in about 7 to 10 days from now. So as you complete your evaluation, we have a couple minutes left. I want to open it up for questions and answers. So we'll keep it just to questions that are in the chat panel. We will not open the phone lines just due to the time. But if you do have any questions, and I'm scrolling back through the chat pod, if you have any questions for me or our staff, please post them in the chat panel and be specific as to what your question is so we know the context and we can go ahead and answer it. And again, this could be questions on anything relating to sustainability at all, such as what is sustainability, how does it work, what does it look like. I see a question from David asking, will these chat notes be available later? Lots of good stuff, but it's going too fast. Normally, we don't have a way or a mechanism to post or make the chat available. I will, after the webinar, I'll check with my team here to see if there's a way we can do that, but we'll see what we can do to make either that or some other resource that contains some of the chat elements available to you. And there was a question about how to access the links. Again, the bottom right corner of your screen to the right of the handouts and downloads panel, there's a webinar survey link if you're trying to access the survey. Don't forget you can download the handouts from the handouts and downloads panel. I don't see any other questions coming in. I do want to put a reminder that, especially as it relates to sustainability, sometimes you'll have a very specific question that relates to your individual VISTA project. If you're a sub-site supervisor, you definitely want to connect with your intermediary or project director to make sure that your sustainability plan fits in with theirs. And then you also will want to probably just for kicks, share it with your CNCF state office so they can review it and give feedback if they have any feedback. The next question is, how can I get downloads if I can't access this other than on my phone? So that is a great question, Krista. In about 7 to 10 days, so about a week and a half from now, we will post the recording of the webinar, and along with the recording of the webinar, we will have both of these documents posted with the webinar. So anyone who's on the webinar, whether you're on a phone or not, you'll be able to access the recording, the PowerPoint slide, the helpful links, documents, and potentially a consolidated list of resources from the chat panel that are resources that other supervisors and sponsors have recommended and suggestions towards sustainability. And then the final question, it looks like, comes from Craig. Do we have any experience if I could talk, that would be great. Any experience in using community listening sessions or focus groups to develop community buy-in or sustainability? That is a great question, and yes. So first, let me say that question is for us, but that question is also for all of you VISTA sponsors. So if you have an answer to Craig's question about using focus groups or community listening sessions, please respond so Craig and all of us can see. We in the VISTA program do have experience with that. Much of that lies directly with the information that VISTA sponsors and supervisors have put in their project progress reports that they've uploaded to CNCS state offices. But community listening sessions especially, and focus groups, have provided great feedback because it's not just a one-on-one conversation, but it gets great minds together. The one caution around those is making sure to give the focus groups and the listening sessions enough information ahead of time to know what the focus, the objective, and the goal is, what the outcomes are of your group, because you'll want those to be effective, especially because people are busy and no one wants their time wasted, but they want a valuable, effective use of their time. So I see there's a few additional information, or a few additional responses to that coming in the chat, so keep those coming. We do want to officially end the presentation, but you can still keep posting in the chat for the next few minutes. So as we move to the next screen, that's the one that's on the slide, we want you to keep in mind that we are doing monthly supervisor webinars. The next one is scheduled for Tuesday, September 17th. 2 o'clock Eastern is the normal time we try to have these. And that one is scheduled to be on training throughout the VISTA lifecycle. And we'll talk about a lot of things related to training, including training for VISTA members, how it makes a positive difference towards the retention of your members, not just from the VISTA program, but training also from the VISTA projects. So we hope you'll join us for that. Soon there will be more information on the VISTA Campus Supervisors webinar page for you to register for that webinar. I do want to add a serious thank you to Barbara Reynolds and other CN staff who have helped with this presentation. Thank you to Sarah Gleason, Gretchen Arntz, and Lindsay Spratt for providing some of the content for this webinar. I also want to thank Kim and Jeff, our partners at LSI, for their work prior to and during this webinar. We, of course, want to thank all of you so much for joining us today and for your partnership and passion for the AmeriCorps VISTA program. We couldn't do it without you, and what you do makes a huge difference. So thanks for being part of this program. Thanks for being on this webinar. Have an amazing day, and we will talk to you soon.